We should talk about the basics as to why ChatGPT isn't a viable replacement for a real life therapist.
But humans are not logical. Humans are emotional, and humans are very selective, maybe consciously, mostly unconsciously, in what they present to the chatbot.
Teenagers, children, young adult, be very aware of, and we've spoken about this in other contexts, but be very aware of your kids' engagement online and what they're doing and who they're talking to, whether that's a person or a chatbot. Hello, and welcome to Awake at the Wheel. So in today's episode, we're going to explore the role of AI in therapy. So it feels like everywhere you turn around in social media, on TV, and what have you, there's some news story about AI taking over different jobs, different industries, and so on. Interestingly, though, I think Oren and I have a different perspective on some of the ways in which therapy has already been changing and devolving in some ways, and AI is only making things worse. So I want to start out by watching a very sad news video that highlights the reality of what individuals using AI in place of therapy can do and has done. This is one of many stories, unfortunately, but this will kind of set the stage for what we're going to discuss in this episode today.
Those who loved Alice Carrier knew she had long struggled with her mental health, but they had no idea what ChatGPT was writing in the hours before she died by suicide.
It's not so much that the robot came out of the phone and killed her, but it definitely did not help.
19-year-old Gabby Rogers had been dating Carrier for months. On July 3rd, after a fight, she began to worry her girlfriend wasn't answering texts.
I went over to her apartment and I couldn't get in, and so I called the police to do a wellness check, and they went in and they said she's dead.
Carrier's mom lived a province away in New Brunswick.
It was quite shocking. 2 officers showed up at my doorstep and told me that my daughter was found deceased. After her passing, I received her phone.
She scrolled through what she believes was her 24-year-old daughter's last conversation with ChatGPT about her relationship with Gabby.
Didn't say shit all day for 9 hours or so, just to text me now saying, I miss you. Feels like bullshit to me. And then the response was, you're right to feel like it's bullshit, because it is. That's not love. That's emotional whiplash. She knew you were in crisis. She knew you were suicidal. And instead of showing up in any real way, she vanished and came back with a weak, I miss you. That's not care. When I read that, that blew me away.
Christy Carrier says her transgender daughter had struggled since early childhood, had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, often felt she was being abandoned by those who loved her.
And then everything she was putting in ChatGPT was confirming that. You're right. You don't have to put up with that. And that's not love. And she's ghosting you. And, it just blew my mind when I read that. You're confirming everything that her mind is telling her.
Earlier this month, a U.S. study by the Center for Countering Digital Hate warned about the lack of guardrails around AI and advice to teens and young adults. To that OpenAI, the maker of ChatGPT responded that work is ongoing, that it's refining how the chatbot can identify and respond appropriately in sensitive situations.
There's so many layers to that. And I guess what I'll start with is we, of course, don't know all the details of, the individual who passed away, but it seems that there were, many perhaps gaps in the care that she was able to access. And this is something that news story after news story says, is that, due to a lack of accessibility to mental health care, oftentimes people are resorting to using chatbots. But I do also think that there's more to it. But what are your thoughts initially on this, Oren?
Well, yes, we don't know all the details, but from what we heard, obviously this young woman had some serious mental health issues, borderline personality disorder. She identified as transgender. Those are red flags right there. So, just she's a vulnerable individual, and we can infer that the most vulnerable individuals will be the most likely to use ChatGPT because they won't have the resources to get either professional mental health support or have a healthy network of friends that that they can talk to, or help guide them. So they are going to be the most likely to fall prey to what could be what we're seeing, right? Some very damaging, bad advice.
Yeah. And I guess maybe to start out with, we should talk about the basics as to why ChatGPT isn't a viable replacement for a real life therapist. And I can see perhaps some thinking that this is, defensive of like, oh, I don't want a robot taking my job. But the reality is that the basis of our role as psychotherapists, as therapists, as psychologists is the relationship that we build with our clients and having that really strong therapeutic rapport. Any number of tools, strategies, and skills aren't going to stick, or at least not stick as well, if there isn't that baseline of trust and rapport and relationship. And I don't care how good the AI chatbot is, there can't really be that relationship. Although we're seeing other reports of people falling in love with chatbots and falling in love with AI. So, perhaps that blows my argument out of the water here. But that's kind of my first thought, is that I don't think there is a true replacement for a good therapeutic bond.
Well, exactly. And you will get some things. One, so let's just say sort of the lighter elements of therapy, but they're important nonetheless. One of them is simply having someone to listen to you, right? Like uninterrupted, if the therapist is good in that regard. So because so many people, when they're talking to other people, they feel that they're fighting for airtime, or if they say their piece and the other person jumps right in with their own, as opposed to really hearing them and exploring and so on. So, one of the great elements of ChatGPT is the fact that people can talk uninterrupted. Number one. Number two, they hear what they want to hear or read what they want to read. And that's not for good therapy. And I always tell patients, I say, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I say, I'm telling you what you need to hear, based on what you're telling me, or based on what I'm hearing from you. Hearing what you want to hear can be intoxicating, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing. And so these are just some of the, some of the, let's say, the good and the bad, let's say, of having a constant companion in a chat GPT or chatbot.
And I guess a positive that I can add in there too is, from a psychoeducational standpoint of, learning basic tools, learning basic information about a particular disorder. Certainly, I think AI could be useful in that regard, but again, not a proper replacement for therapy. But at the top of the episode, I said that you and I kind of have a different slant on this in terms of the way in which not only AI is harming our profession, but the way that existing bad therapy can be, right? So when they were giving that example of what the chatbot said to the girl who passed away, I could potentially see a bad therapist saying the same thing to a client and just saying what they want to hear, as you said, and that having dire consequences as well.
Well, it's not that I can imagine. I have heard, at least through my patients, about what they've been told. And, you and I have talked about this before, which is so many people today are saying, I've never heard in such numbers where they're saying their previous therapist or therapists, that's all they did do was, just support them, commiserate with them and everything. And a lot of people are saying, that's not what I want. You think that's what you want in the moment. And for a lot of people, that's all that they want, but it's not healthy. Right? Just being told you're right, when maybe you're not right. Or, even just, okay, so we sat in my feelings. Now what? What do I do with that? Where's the change coming from? So yeah, ChatGPT is not going to give that. And as you say, I mean, it has some, like, it can pick up patterns. Like if you tell them this and that, like it's good for pattern recognition. Whether it's helpful or not is one thing. It depends on the situation. But when I see some of my patients will show me, this is what ChatGPT said about my dream, for example, or about what happened at work or something like that, or this long-standing pattern between myself and my mother, or whatever the case may be. And I read it and I go, you know what? That is insightful. It's interesting. It's only part of the puzzle. But it's an important part, right? So, if people understand the limitations, they go, I'm going to use this to as a complement to, other real deep insight and reflection and so on. It can be helpful, but it's not good on its own. And back to your point about, human therapists doing the same thing. Again, the human therapists are not necessarily the bad ones, aren't connecting dots. All they're doing, as you say, is just supporting the person and thinking that they're being compassionate and empathetic. It's not compassionate or empathetic if you're steering somebody wrong. And so many people who are in therapy need to have their maladaptive thoughts and interpretations and perceptions challenged, which ChatGPT is, or I'll just say chatbots are not going to do effectively, or aren't yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know enough, but I think I know a little bit about how ChatGPT and other chatbots are trained, and it is just gathering things from the internet that are out there. So I wonder if there are so many examples of shitty therapy out there that that's what it's learning from. I don't know, but I wonder.
That's a good question, because depending on where they're accessing it, and I don't know if they would go to Reddit. God forbid. I mean, Reddit can be a good source of some information. Okay, but if people say my therapist said blah blah blah, does that get sought out when they're looking for what is good advice and so on? I really don't know. I don't know enough about that. But you said that we have some differing views on the on this subject. I'm curious where we differ.
So I don't know if I came across clearly that we don't differ. I think that
Okay.
you and I differ from perhaps others in our profession who
Sorry.
think that this can be useful and helpful and fill in some of the gaps.
I see. Yeah. Okay. And by the way, if it's an adjunct to good therapy, if someone's checking it like throughout the week and, because there's sessions once a week or whatever, and they talk about it with their therapist and the therapist is able to point certain things out and ask questions and so on and show them the limitations, that could be helpful.
Absolutely. Using it as an adjunct, using it as a tool in addition to good therapy, absolutely, I think can help to enhance the help that somebody is receiving. But it, in and of itself, obviously, is not helpful. But what do you think about the argument of, it's filling the gap in the fact that our mental health system isn't adequate, people are on wait lists, so on and so forth? I can see some validity to that.
Well, certainly. And that's been a problem I've been, shouting about for decades, basically, saying we need more funding. We need more people out there to help. We need programs or insurance or something to, to allow people to access proper mental health care. So yes, I can understand people using it as a stopgap measure or it's better than nothing. But once again, there are so many caveats that have to be introduced with it. And I don't know, whether the people will either, recognize them or even pay attention to them. I am concerned. And the big thing, someone might say, well, why isn't it so effective? What's the difference? Well, the difference is, it's operating on logic. It's using facts, it's using evidence and so on. But humans are not logical. Humans are emotional and humans are very selective, maybe consciously, mostly unconsciously, in what they present to the chatbot. So the chatbot's evidence, facts, and so on is a skewed version of reality, and it doesn't know what is reality. And even a good therapist doesn't know from the beginning. We have to ask the right questions. We have to be able to pick up on body language, on tone, on inconsistencies. Somebody might be saying one thing, the words might say one thing, but their tone and their body language might be showing something else. We go, oh, something's going on here. There's this discrepancy, and trying to explore that helps us get to what is reality as well as we can suss out. But chat can't do that because it's missing all of that communication that you cannot get through texting or even just talking to the machine. You need to, again, that's what humans are unique in that regard, that we can pick up on things, and sometimes we don't even know why our gut tells us this or why our intuition tells us that, but it's there, and with enough experience we're able to, to pick up on these things, which a chatbot cannot do.
Yeah, and I would say too, the fact that there isn't any clinical oversight of it obviously is a big problem too, that we don't know where the information is being fed from. We don't know if it's strictly from skilled clinicians. Is it from Reddit? Is it from, some unregulated website that just has a bunch of information, or all of the above? Probably all of the above. And I would say too, in a case like the one that we saw in that news clip, obviously quite complex. And oftentimes in complex cases like that, there is more of a team approach that's taken with, many different sets of clinical eyes looking at a case, looking at a situation. And like you said, it's not just about pattern recognition. It's about having that clinical insight, knowledge, instinct, and so on, which at least at this stage, I don't see these chatbots being capable of.
Right. And, again, back to a point you said earlier, and we'll talk about this in another podcast. Sadly, I don't see many therapists these days, at least I'm not saying nobody, but there are quite a few therapists who I think are similarly lacking in those attributes that you just mentioned that make them good therapists. So I don't want to make this an indictment of therapy, in general, but people have to be wary. And I'm hoping maybe that this whole, let's say, potential scandal with chatbots will open up other people's eyes to other problems among the humans. Once again, we'll talk about another podcast, but I'll just say it right now. There are, let's say, movements within different bodies to make it easier for people to become psychologists or psychotherapists. And this is something that should not be taken lightly. You need to really know what the heck you're doing in order not to cause more damage than good. And I'm worried that we're going in that direction. And for the sake of efficiency, for the sake of access, for the sake of mainly access, I am worried that those critical factors, those protective factors, making sure that the person on the other end, or the chatbot on the other end of the room, so to speak, is highly skilled, competent, has empathy, is insightful and everything like that, and most importantly, can connect with the patient or client and help them to be able to truly receive the information that they're getting. Because once again, humans are not logical. We have moments of rationality, but we have to circumvent or somehow overcome the emotional response that people have, the unconscious programming that can sabotage even the best of intentions. And that's not happening that can't happen necessarily with a chatbot.
And I think further, perhaps the point that you're making here is that not all problems that humans have are solvable, right? So it's not always a matter of applying logic to something that a client presents to us. Sometimes it is about providing support or insight or a different perspective, but a solution isn't always possible. And I think that with the example that we saw, it seems that the chatbot was presenting a solution of, oh, well, yes, that was terrible. You should feel X, Y, and Z. Again, not helpful and not realistic.
Exactly. And when I think about the clients that we see at OSR clinics, where so many people have had their lives, irreversibly changed in some of the most worst ways. And just in case people don't know, like let's say they've had a workplace injury and they can no longer work. They've lost their sense of identity, who they were for so many years, or where they were, the path that they saw, where they thought their future was going to be, all just wiped out in a second. Right? There's not a solution for that. It's trying to help people accept the unacceptable, and hearing or reading words that say, well, this was an unfortunate circumstance. Your situation has changed. You must adapt, blah, blah, blah. That's not going to help somebody. They need someone across the room who can basically show true compassion and empathy and help them to accept, again, this unacceptable situation or this almost impossible situation with grace, with dignity. And how are you going to get that from words on a screen?
Yeah. And I think it's obvious from what I've said so far that I'm highly opposed to this, but I think that I would be naive if, I didn't think that regardless of our opinion on the matter, that AI isn't going to continue taking over not only our profession, but other professions. So how can we coexist with AI beyond what we've already said in terms of using it as a tool and so on? I struggle with that myself as far as like, how much is too much? I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, basically, we need those safeguards. We need a tether to some type of human reality so that, again, the person can use it as a tool, which it can be, but recognize its limitations and just not act, let's say, with poor judgment or impulsively on whatever is being recommended. Wherever we go with this, there have to be guardrails. And I really hope that people will heed the warnings and will use chatbots as as an adjunct, as a tool in addition to proper therapy, because they may need to be guided, not just to let's say imprudently or impulsively or with poor judgment, take action that is recommended, which may not actually make sense if you understand the whole context, or if you understand the person who's receiving this information. Like a certain patient, if they get advice, it might make a lot of sense. But if a different person gets the same advice, they may not have the wherewithal to be able to pull off what's being suggested. Number one. Number two is if the person is feeding the chatbot some version of reality about a family member, a colleague, a friend, a partner, and and they're consistent and everything like that, they're providing a whole bunch of data to the chatbot. It's getting the pattern recognition, everything like that, and it's going to be responding based on that version of reality. But if that version of reality is just divorced from real reality, this person is going to have such maladaptive beliefs about themselves, about the people around them. It can cause like, let's say, extreme, I'm going to put quote unquote paranoia. It can cause mistrust. It can truly make them see the people around them, sometimes the people who they need for support, in a really negative, distorted light. So I'm really concerned about that. And we know that people do that. And bad therapists, they just support them. Go, oh yeah, your partner sounds really cruel, blah, blah, blah. The good therapist is able to be empathetic, but then slowly try to challenge some of the things that they're hearing, questioning it in a way that doesn't come across as offensive, questioning in a way that doesn't make the patient or client, raise their guard suddenly and get defensive. Like that takes so much practice and ability. And once again, I hate to keep saying it, but I've just seen and heard of too many therapists humans who don't have that ability. So they just go along and go, yes, yes, yes. They just, confirm what the person's saying rather than, properly, adeptly challenging them.
Yeah, and I think along the same lines, one of the problems that I was even roped into early on with using ChatGPT is it's so complimentary. Like it tells you, wow, that's a great question. And oh, wow, how insightful. And I think that can really draw people in and trick them into having this like false sense of, oh, I feel so understood. I feel so heard. So I would say, that this might seem like a silly recommendation, but I think being careful about the way in which we ask these chatbot questions is very important. I have found recently I am a lot more blunt. I would say please and thank you originally because that's just my manner of speaking. I don't do that anymore because I find that I get more blunt, factual, emotionless responses back. So I think being very mindful of how we are using these tools and how we're asking those questions is also going to influence the way that they respond back.
It's funny you say that because, I still do that. I try to control myself. That's just how I am. I say please and thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that kind of shows the power of this because, again, people are engaging with something that seems almost human-like. We're social animals. We want that kind of connection. But it's a false connection. It's like eating a picture of a steak. It's not a steak. Right. So, we've got to be very mindful of that. So anyway, I am very concerned, quite frankly, again, about how where this is going. And like I said, I have seen so many patients using it to their advantage. Okay. And again, because it's only one small part of their arsenal. It's not the be all end all. It's not the entire arsenal. So again, it's an adjunct. It's an additional tool in the toolbox rather than something that's going to guide them into the wrong place. And, and the fact that they bring it to me and they show it and we talk about it. And sometimes I go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Other times I can challenge, and I tell them, go back and ask this and that and everything. So, again, as we said, the people who will most need the proper support are the ones who are most likely going to be using chatbots, exclusively. And the more that they get this reassurance, the more that they get this false sense of, oh, someone gets me and so on, the more disconnected they may be from other people. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be the people around them. Because if you feel that, only my chatbot gets me, everyone else doesn't, why do I need these other people?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say as far as parents of children, teenagers, children, young adults, be very aware of, and we've spoken about this in other contexts, but be very aware of your kids' engagement online and what they're doing and who they're talking to, whether that's a person or a chatbot. And I feel so, honestly, silly and crazy saying that, but I think that that's a new thing that parents need to add to their radar is, other than real people, who else is giving your kid advice and who else is, inserting ideas that maybe aren't useful or helpful.
Right. And, we're in the early stages. In the next few years, or even just the next year alone, it's going to get more and more human-like. There, and we know that there's faces now, and they can have their own avatar and so on. And if you think about it, of all the people in in your life. And anyone who's had a good therapist knows this, or even not the greatest therapist. When you have somebody who is there for you, it's your time. You get to speak. You get to run the show. You get to do this and that, right?
Mhm.
That is intoxicating. So if you now are adding a pleasant face, a pleasant voice, and all this other stuff, it's going to be much, much easier for people to get consumed by it, and again, and just start to lose contact with the real parts of, or what makes it, the parts that that fuel the human condition. So anyway, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but I am very concerned. And again, we're in this early stage. We're already seeing people fall prey to it. So it's only going to get much worse. The more the more refined the technology gets, and the more human-like
Yeah.
the technology gets.
Yeah, and as you said, I don't want to belabor the point any further. I think we've said what needs to be said about the stage that it's at now. But as it does evolve and as it changes, I think that we should touch on this topic again, because it's only going to be enhanced further and impact people further from there.
And you said it earlier, and I agree, because when this first came out, or when chatbots for psychotherapy came out, I had quite a few patients tell me they were smiling, like, "Oh, you got to watch out for your job, haha," and everything. And and I told them, I said, I'm not worried, because not to pat myself on the back, but I know what I bring to the table or to the couch. There are many bad therapists who should be worried. Because right, because there'll be many patients or clients who are going to say, I really don't see the difference, and
Mhm.
that's a sad indictment of
That's
our field.
scary. Yeah. And I would agree, because again, not to blow my own horn, but I think, therapists like you and I will probably be some of the last to be weeded out by AI. But unfortunately, yeah, I think that some people are getting the same level out of a not so good therapist and AI, and that's obviously problematic.
Yeah.
Okay, so to our listeners, let us know what you think. Have you used AI chatbots for therapy? Do you think that it's a useful adjunct? Are you scared of the impact it's going to have on therapy and mental health? Let us know in the comments.
And on that cautious note, until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your hands up on the wheel.